Public gigs versus private gigs. Which is better for you as a singer, musician, performer, live band? This kind of comparison video offers a huge gray area that is really dependent on what you want to achieve as a live performer. Welcome back to Danny Robertson Music, where we're helping you be the performer that you are meant to be. I'm Danny. Thank you for joining me again, as always. Now, you may have seen this in some of my previous videos. I tend to play a lot of private gigs with my special events band that I work with pretty regularly. For me, playing a lot of private gigs tends to suit my personal playing style, my personal performance style, and the goals that I want to achieve as a live performer. It's well suited for a guy like me and the players that I work with in that group. But it is not suited for everybody, and depending on the kind of performer that you are, it's going to affect whether or not you would be well suited for that kind of show. So first, let's discuss what these things are and some of the pros and cons of each one. What is a public gig? A public gig is basically any gig that you are going to do as a live performer that is open to the general public. It can be an indoor gig. It can be an outdoor gig. It can be something that's available to the people that want to see it for free, or they can have to pay an entry fee to go and see that gig. But if it is available and open to anybody that wants to go to that performance, that is a public gig. This includes things like bars and clubs, coffee shops, wineries, restaurants, libraries, malls, parks, businesses. All of those can have a public event that people are invited to come and see. Public basically means that you're not excluding anybody. Anybody that wants to come can come to your show. Now, some pros of playing a public gig are you're building your brand. You are becoming a name within your community. It's not entirely necessary, but public gigs are a great way to basically let people know that you are out there. You are bringing brand awareness. You are letting people know that you exist and that you are something that people will want to see. You also get a lot of creative freedom in how you go about playing a public gig. You might play cover music. You might play original music. You might do a combination of the both. An old band of mine used to be a cover band, but we would throw in original music that we had written just to see if it would stand the test of being just as exciting, just as danceable, just as fun as the cover songs that people know and love. So basically, you get to do things how you want and see how the audience reacts, how they behave when you do certain things on stage. Playing publicly also allows you to do networking and get to know the community that you are playing with. So things like getting to meet other musicians or bar owners, or maybe the radio DJ that interviews all the local bands. You get to do that in the public scene. And some other things that you can do are things like you can bring out merch to your shows. You can bring t-shirts, you can bring coffee cups, things that people would want to buy at your shows. Sell your music on CDs or vinyls or USB drives or digital downloads. All of those things can happen at a public show fairly easily. Now, there are some cons to playing publicly as well. So, for example, if you're playing at a bar publicly, the kind of bars that tend to book live bands tend to do that at least on Fridays and Saturdays pretty much every week. And what that means is that they are paying out for live music at least a couple of times a week. They're probably offering a little bit less overall because that's a huge amount of money that they have to consistently fork out for live entertainment. Now, the places that understand that that live entertainment is bringing them in business will actually pay a little bit more, but it really depends on the bar or club that you're playing at, whether you get paid well. And for a lot of bars, it's just simply not feasible to offer a whole lot of money unless you're charging a cover fee to get in to that bar that essentially pays for the band. And another thing that happens a lot is you can play the same place 2 months in a row, and 1 month it's going to be packed and having a great time, and then the next month, there is nobody there. The weather is good, or whether it's a nice day, or whether there's some other event going on, it can affect whether you play to a packed house or an empty room. One thing that I find is changing in my area, but it's still pretty consistent here, is that if you're playing live music in a public setting, a lot of those are later nights. Instead of getting done at 10 or 11 at night, a lot of bars and clubs, they book you to start at 10 o'clock at night, and it can go into the wee morning hours, so that can affect your next day. But for some of you, that might be the exact time you want to be out and playing live. And the last con I'm going to bring up for public gigs actually can affect private gigs too. For example, if you're playing at a sports bar, there might be a soccer game or a football game or a basketball game that is a really important event in your community that lots of people are paying attention to. I have had many gigs where if there's an important game going on, the bar might actually say, don't start until after the game's over. Basically, in these kinds of environments, you could be competing for attention with something like a TV screen or some other kind of distraction. And sometimes it's disheartening if you're the one that's playing the music and you're supposed to be the center of attention and people aren't paying attention to you. It's not always fun when that happens. So now let's take a look at private gigs. What exactly is a private gig compared to what we saw with a public gig? Private gig is usually something that is invite only, so it's not available to everyone in the general public. It's only the people that have been invited to those events. There's usually some sort of guest list or specific group that has actually been invited to attend the event. There's also usually someone or some group that is covering a good chunk of the bill for everyone to attend the event. They're usually not the location owner, not the venue owner. It's usually the client of that venue that is paying for the location that they're having, the food that they're having, the entertainment that they're having. And these kinds of private gigs would include things like weddings and corporate events, fundraisers, awards ceremonies, birthdays, country club events, golf outings, things like that. There are some serious pros that come with playing a private event. For one, you're probably going to get paid a lot more. The average private gig pays something more like 2 to 3 times what you would make in a public gig. So basically, if you're making $100 at a bar per musician, you're probably going to make, in a private scenario, 200 to 300 at least for a private version of that band, okay? And the reason for that is you're not playing at the same place consistently, and your client is paying a premium price to hold the date with you. A lot of the time, it's going to be even more than that because private gigs tend to demand a higher premium. It's also a much more professional environment, so it is contracts, it's logistics, there's a timetable. You're actually going to laugh at this, but one of my favorite perks about playing private events is that I get fed really well. I remember a private gig at a casino several years ago where the band was served these steaks that here's the size of the plate and here's the size of the steak. It was so delicious that we actually got to-go boxes to take the rest of our steaks home because they were that stinking good. You also basically get the equivalent of a guaranteed audience. This is very true in the wedding circuit. It's less true in the corporate events, but it's still kind of the case. You get a group of people that are there to attend the event in full as much as possible. And it's almost a guarantee that they are going to be ready to party because the drinks are flowing. They're usually already having a good time. And you get to have fun with an audience that is going to pay attention to everything you do. And then lastly, just like public gigs, you do get the opportunity to network, but it's a different kind of networking. You are dealing with people that are, putting more money into this cause, into this event that you are a part of. Sometimes those people are business owners. Sometimes they are the parents of a bride or a groom who are helping fund the event. And guess what? They have other children that are going to be also getting married. That's a very common thing that we see in our private event space. Once you've done a good job performing for one group, a lot of them tend to tell their friends, and then you get more business. Now, on the other side of this, there are some cons to playing private events. Basically, there's the jukebox effect. You are kind of hired in to be a specific thing for that performance. So in the space of playing weddings, for example, you're basically playing a good chunk of the same top 40 songs as every other band that plays weddings. Why? Because brides and grooms want it. So for example, a lot of wedding bands currently play songs like Mr. Brightside. And why is that? Because that is an anthem for the people that are getting married right now. They grew up on that song. It's part of their growth that they happened in their formative years, and that song speaks to them really, really well. So that song works extremely well in weddings. You might get tired of playing it, but everybody loves it. Some other things that are cons to private events is it's a very high pressure situation. You're supposed to deliver on somebody's special day or special event. There are no do-overs for something like a first dance song. You have to get it right. You have to get it as good as possible for that performance. You may also have a more rigid dress code. If you're playing a black and white event, where everybody's wearing tuxes, you're probably going to have to dress pretty nice for it. You might have something that you'd call like a dedicated band uniform. I can tell you in my case, now whenever I go to play one of those events, I know what I'm going to wear. I don't have to decide that. There is a set guideline for what I'm supposed to do for those events. So it takes that question mark, it takes that decision off of my plate, and I don't personally mind that. But when I first started with that band, I came from a group that was very colorful, always very creative in the terms of the fun factor. It was a big change for me to go from vibrant colors and lots of exciting tones to basically black and white. And it took a while for me to get used to that idea. And now that I actually kind of love it. The last con that I'm going to bring up with this is that these kinds of events tend to be longer days. They're very logistics heavy because there's timing for when you have to be set up and sound checked. Your sound check has to be done at a particular time so that the guests can arrive and that the rest of the event can happen while you are being scarce for 2 or 3 hours. Sometimes you have to MC those events. Sometimes you have to coordinate what's happening with a bridal party or with a business. You do have a lot of logistics that go on with private events. And most of the time, I will say that they tend to go smoothly on their own. But there are the occasional ones where things change at the moment's notice. You don't get to eat a dinner sometimes because sometimes something was added to the schedule. It can be very logistics heavy, and it can be a pain in the neck if you're not careful. Now, if we look at this at a higher tier of performance, you could be looking at maybe something like going on tour or playing festivals and concerts. And those can also be both public or private, but there are some pros and cons to those that I do want to quickly talk about as well. When you're touring, some of the pros might be that you get to road test everything. You get to try new songs. You get to see how the audience reacts in one city versus another city. You get to build a fan base that's not just local to your own community, but more of a regional or national or even global reach. What that does is it allows you to kind of forge your own path. It's more like you ultimately get to build out your own unique legacy, your own brand across a large group of people. But there are cons with touring, and you really have to think about this, whether you want to put yourself out there in this way. One, it's going to cost you a lot more. There's extremely high overhead. You got to think about just covering the transportation about both you and whoever's involved in your stage and everything like that. And then hotel rooms, the cost of gas, the cost of flights, the cost of moving equipment, any maintenance that happens with all of that. There are some significant costs to going on tour. It can also be very mentally and physically draining. Playing a show here, then driving 6 hours to go somewhere else, playing that show the next day, you could be exhausted. It does take a toll on your physical and your mental health, and you have to be ready for it. And the biggest con that can come from touring that I see is that it is financially risky because you could be spending a lot of money to get all of these things in place so that you can go on tour, and then nobody buys tickets to your shows. If that happens, you're basically losing money to go and perform for people. Now, in the same vein of things, let's talk about maybe playing festivals or concert series. A pro to this is that you're going to get a lot of exposure to fans that have never heard you before. They might not have specifically come to see you, but they get exposed to you and your music and your show, and you might gain some new fans from what you'd call basically a passive listener. Playing at festivals, you usually get a pro-level sound that is done for you, usually a well-built stage and a team of people that are running the show for you. At the same time, a con that can be from playing a festival or a concert series like that is that you're usually one of a series of different acts. And that means two things. One, your set is probably going to be pretty short, and you're going to be on a strict time frame. So even if you plan out 15 songs, if you only get to song 10 and your time is cut off, they will cut you off. I have a friend who, she and I played at a festival in 2 separate bands last year, and the band she was playing in was supposed to go on at a particular time frame, and they had a power issue at that time frame. So what ended up happening was Her entire set time got used to fix the power. And then once they got the power back working, the band only had about 2 songs worth of time to play, and then they cut them off. And it was almost a waste of time for her. And the last thing about playing a show like that is that if you are one of many, many different groups, it's going to make it that much harder for you to make an impression and be memorable so that people look you up, so that people start following you, because there's the next act coming on right after you. It makes it really hard to be memorable. So which one of these do you think is right for you? Do you think that you want to play in bars and clubs and coffee shops, maybe church? Do you want to play private events like weddings or corporate events? Do you want to go on tour? Do you want to play festivals? That choice is really up to you. So what kind of performer do you want to be? What kind of performer are you meant to be? Sometimes it's a combination of these. If you want to play publicly, great. If you want to play privately, that's great too. There's no right answer to this. So you get out there and do what you want to do to be the performer that you're meant to be. Either way, best of luck on whatever gigs you choose to do. If you do want to dive deeper into how you can do these better, come and check me out at Danny Robertson Music, okay? Best of luck to you in the meantime, and we'll see you soon. Take care.